You are walking around with your real self within you. That real self is the Zelem. That's the Zelem Elohim, the image of God. That's the inner tube that's within you, inside you. The body that we see, this goof, this body, is an ego body. We think we're this body. We're not. We're the internal aspect that actually leaves the body at night when the body goes to sleep. And this Zelem returns back up into the spheres, gets recharged, so to speak, and then comes back into the body. That's why they say sleep is 1/60th of death. My brother had that when he had this attack. He thought he was asleep. The Zelem left and then came back down. And this is the real self. You know, in psychology, when they talk about the self, the real self is the Zelem. It's not the body. But, you know, it can also go to change from the Ani into the ayin, to the ain. Same letters rearranged. That ain is where the Zelem comes from, you see. And it's the real self. And you're walking around with this real self, and it actually makes projections as the shadow. The shadow is the projection of the Zelem. You see? So when you see the shadow, that's basically the real self. That's the internal aspects of the self being projected out. And so it's light that's projected through the body, you see. And so that's what creates the shadow. And there's a lot of beautiful gematria in this, because the Zelem itself, when written out in full, well, the Zelem itself is 160, you know, which 160 is the gematria of Kayin. And so there's a great link between the soul of Kayin and the Zelem. And the full spelling of Zelem is 358, which is Nahash and Moshiach. And so these are the other links to the Zelem. And when one recognizes the Zelem, they can get into that kind of like area of consciousness, you see. Now, other work I've been doing about the Zelem is that well, today's work, I spent a lot of time today working on the Zelem and the Talit Katan. Actually, both Talits, the Talit Gadol and the Talit Katan especially, is a physical covering of the body, which is in a certain sense the Zelem projected on the outside. It's the Olam HaMalbush that's talked about. And the Talit Katan relates to this Olam HaMalbush, which existed before the creation. And the fringes on it, or with the gematria, the fringes, you know, there are 5 knots and 8 strings, that's 13, and that comes from the 13 attributes of mercy. And the 39 wrappings, which are 7, 8, 11, and 13, make it into Adonai Echad, and also the 39 obvious Sabbath labors and 39 times 2 is 78, and that's Mazla. And this is all of the same thing. And this is the Olam HaMalbush, which has to do with the letters. The Olam HaMalbush is the letters. It's the 22 letters in two-letter pairs. So it's 22 times 21, which is 260, well, whatever it is. Over 2, it's 231. But there's 2 of them, so it's 231, so it's 462, which is nativ, which means path. And that's forward and back. And that's front and back. And that's why the backwards walking is so important. To get in touch with the Olam HaMalbush, one has to get also in the back. And when one wears a talit katan, one sees that there's a parallelism between the front and the back. You see? And this Olam HaMalbush folds over just like a talit katan. So the deepest aspects that I'm actually bringing up today is that the talit katan represents an Olam HaMalbush, which is pre-existent. There are many things that are pre-existent to creation. You know? The other thing I've been working on is sound. The sound of the shofar, especially now during Elul. Sound, pre-existent to words even. Sound. It's a little bit like singing. It's the sound. And yes, this does have to do with the Shema, because the Shema obviously is a very deep issue. How could sound be higher than eyes? When sound normally comes from Bina and eyes come from Chokhmah. Yet, there's a real deep issue here. The 50th path, the 50th nativ of Bina goes into Keta. You see? So eventually, it's the sound without words. You know? The Hashmal, the Malbush, the same letters in Hashmal and Malbush. The idea of the 50th path of Bina, which is higher than Chokhmah. The 50th path of Bina goes higher than the left, goes higher than the right, and that has to come from the Shema. And that's the saying the 50 letters of the 25 letters of the Shema twice a day, which is the 50. And so you need a doubling there. And so this is where the ear, the Shimon, the Shema of the ear goes further than the eye. Because there's sound, the sound also of the Ayil, of Yitzhak's substitution of Abraham at the Akedah. The sound that was created on Erev Shabbos before anything. These sounds are very, very deep, very, very mystical. Sound of tears, of crying.
Hello guys.
There's no words in crying, no words in tears. The tears that come from the eyes are equivalent to the sound of crying. This is the Mayim. This is the actual well. There's so much more to say on this, but this is the direction I'm going. And I hope you go there with me.